He then said, "What do you think would work?" Excuse my black country language here. I responded, "Buggered if I know." But I'm sure our frontline people do. The ones I have spoken to are so knowledgeable and passionate about serving the customer. So he said, "Guess what? Tell me more." I then said, "We need time to engage and involve the whole company in developing a vision we can all believe in and get behind." He said, "Sounds like a plan. What do you need from me?" And I just said, "Give me the time." "You've got it," was the response. From that conversation, I and my team, supported by a fantastic bunch of organisational psychologists called PA Associates, and I'd like to just point to a gentleman in the row there. Put your hand up, please, Philip. That man has supported us through this transformation of the rail business over the last 13 years. We spent the next 2 years engaging and working with all of our people to help them develop their vision for the company. But it was as much about developing them, the whole person, and not just a bit of them that did the job. It was also about developing the relationship and trust access, as described it. It's a fact in British Rail, under the command and control, there was very little engagement across grades within the business or across departments. And one of the things we really developed through the 2 years' worth of hard work was create the relationships within the business so people actually spoke to each other, and created that trust access, which is so important in terms of putting in the vision for the business and delivering what we need to do as a business. And over the time, those relationships and that trust blossomed. And it was quite amazing to see the shift in people's attitudes. I guess it would have been a lot easier and less time consuming to come up with the collective wisdom of the executive team. Maybe with the help of consultants, we could create a mission statement, a vision statement, if you will, and a set of company values. Post them in the reception area and the mess rooms and the offices, but whose vision would it be? Whose mission and whose values? Ooh. The exec team did come up with their vision. And our vision was to become the most safe, consistent, reliable and profitable of all the train operating franchises in a climate that respects different views, and people needn't be afraid to be open and honest. Trips off the tongue, doesn't it? For us as a team, there were a few non-negotiables in that statement. What I mean by a non-negotiable is whatever we did, these non-negotiables had to be satisfied, achieved and met. They were being safe. We don't have a business if we're not seen as being safe by our passengers. And an incredible story, probably most of you have heard about our tragic grey rig accident when Network Rail failed to maintain the point and our train came off the track. It came off the track at 95 miles an hour. This 450-ton machine, and it went down a 30-foot embankment. And sadly, one lady lost her life. But it could have been so much worse. Our rating publicly for safety went up because they saw we'd invested in the safest train we could possibly get. And the way we dealt with the incident was seen as world class. So out of tragedy, we actually enhanced our safety reputation, which is ironic, isn't it? But it's so important, it's a given, a non-negotiable for the passengers, certainly. So for us, it has to be a non-negotiable. Profitability is a non-negotiable. That's why we're in business. And as a team, we felt also what was a non-negotiable for us, whether we were dealing with each other or with the people in the business, is we would always be open and honest with them. The importance of the non-negotiables within any vision statement, certainly for us, is to create the stability across the organisation whilst not constraining people's vision for the organisation. If you like, it's a way of stitching all parts of the business together. How did you define leadership earlier? Leadership is the art of motivating a group of people to act towards a common goal. And using the non-negotiables is a way of ensuring that you are developing that common goal. What we did over that period of time, we worked with groups of 10 to 12 staff at a time. We mixed the disciplines and we took them away from their normal workplace. And we worked with them over a period of 3 days. We asked them to come up with their vision for their part of the business and what values did they as a group hold dear and were important to them as individuals. We didn't tell them what our vision was or our values. What we did as an exec team, helped by Philip and his team, we acted as facilitators and coaches. We gave them the skills to challenge their colleague and us in an appropriate way, and we also gave them skills to receive challenge. Importantly, in all of this was the ability to challenge upwards, to challenge people they saw as senior to them. If you remember, British Rail was very much a command and control organisation. So the idea of somebody subordinate in the structure challenging somebody more senior than them was unheard of. So we had to work very hard to give them the confidence to be able to do that. And we also developed their abilities to give feedback and express their views clearly. It was only right at the end of the session we shared our vision, the exec vision, with them. And perhaps not surprisingly, their vision and their values were very, very similar to ours. But there was one big difference. The vision they took back to the workplace was theirs. It wasn't ours imposed upon them. This did take a lot of time and effort, but I believe to develop people properly, a leader needs to see it as a marathon and not a sprint. It's hard work, but as I said right at the start of the talk, people are good business, so it's worth doing. And this is where the fun really starts. The vision the group of staff had created for themselves became the boundary they operated in. But it's a very flexible boundary which can change and adapt to the world the business operates in. I'm sure we've seen, particularly in the difficult times today with recession, businesses are having to change an awful lot. So the vision we created with our staff and helped them created that boundary, but as I say, it was a very flexible boundary where they could come up with their ideas for making the business successful. We call these things the vision workshops, as they became to be known, and were successful for one overriding reason. It was that for the vast majority of people, the very first time they had been asked, "What do you think?" And the management had actually listened to their answers. I said earlier, it helped create many, many new relationships across the business. Friendships were formed which continue to this day. And importantly, and this is why it's good business, we found many, many rising stars by going through that process with the staff. I guess what we were doing was we were creating a very powerful relationship and trust axis across the business. So the teams went back into their part of the business with their vision and armed with the skills to work with colleagues to apply that vision to their business. Then came the challenge of translating their vision into actions, if you like, translating into their goals and objectives. This is when I became an amateur psychologist with my own exec team, much to the disgust of Mr. Edwards over there. When we took our vision, the one up there, and worked on how to deliver it, I asked my exec team to come up with their individual goals and objectives for the coming year, so we could roll them out to the rest of the business. Between them, and I've got 6 executives who report to me, they came up with around 40 to 50 separate goals and objectives, all very detailed and well thought out. And after a few hours of discussion and debate, I was asked for mine. I replied, "That's very simple. Be safe and make money." There was a stunned silence. The question eventually came back, "But how do we know ours are aligned with yours and targeted at the right areas of the business?" Fair question, you may think. I went on to say, if your goals and objectives tick these 2 boxes, they're safe and they make money, they're fine by me. I said it's not for me to decide, say, the yield management strategy in our commercial